Welcome to C++ with Miyoshi. I want to talk a little bit today about formatted files. So if you know exactly what the format of your file is, it's nice to be able to bring in data as formatted data. So I'm going to just show you a quick file that does input formatted with a comma delimited file and outputs it as a tab delimited file. So what does delimited mean? Well, delimited means you have some data that's separated by commas or separated by some delimiter. You often hear of comma separated files, CSVs, but we are going to just talk about comma delimited files. I just like to call them delimited because I like the word delimited, and because it tells you that's the limit of the word, or that's the end of the word, or that's the end of the data. So comma delimited values. What I have here is let's say that I have my input file on my disk, and it has this text in it, and it's got Abraham, comma T, comma 13. There's no spaces in there, even though it looks like there is. And there's a new line at the end. Then I have Oscar P, 25, and Pablo Q, 99, and Michael T, and 155. All the data is separated by commas, and everything on the line is kind of connected, and there's new lines at the end to separate the different pieces of data. So the comma separated values, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that from the file, and then I'm going to output that, but instead of the commas, I'm going to put tabs in there. And it's a very simple operation. Again, remember that with files, you declare a stream. You can declare your output stream, your input stream, and instead of using your input and output that are the keyboard for input and the monitor for the output, we're going to use our disk or files for our input stream and our output stream. Okay, so let's look at the code. The code looks very similar. Matter of fact, I just changed some things down here. I have the same pound include up there on the top. I have the same main. I have the same IF stream. I have the same OF stream. I didn't even change those pieces because I don't want to write, every time. And then I have my in open in my input, and I have my OF stream output dot text, and I open them up. Now, again, I'm going to check to make sure my input file got opened. If it didn't get open, I'm going to output, hey, the file's not found, return 0. Now, remember that in C++, it doesn't matter if you put these character ch on a different line as my int I. As long as I have the proper syntax, as long as the semicolon is there, I can do this. Matter of fact, you could write every program you ever wrote, you could write on one line. Just put the proper syntax in there, but it would make it really tough to debug. It would make it really tough to read as you read through the code later on, looking at the code. So, but anyway, I want to do that to save a little time and a little space. So I have char ch, I have an int I, and I'll use those here in a moment. But notice those represent my data. I'm going to have a character data and an int data. So that's why I have them there. Then I have two strings. I have a temp string and I have a name. The temp is very similar to what we saw before with the input from the other string, or from the other file, just copying from one file to the next file, line by line. But in this case, I'm going to use it for something else. And then I have this string called name. And of course, you notice that name is the first data field we have in our file. Okay? So, what I'm going to do, I have a get line in, comma, name, comma, single quote, comma, single quote. Now, we haven't really seen this probably very much, but this third parameter in my get line, the first one, of course, we have had either cin, or in this case, my in, because I'm doing it from a file stream. The second one is the variable that I'm using, my string variable that I'm using. And the third one here is a new one. That is the delimiter. Now, it doesn't matter what your delimiter is, as long as you know what it is, as long as you tell, since you're the programmer, as long as you know what the delimiter is in your file, you can put that here in your single quote. Now, if I don't have this guy here, what it does is it looks for any white space. So it looks for a space, it looks for a tab, or it looks for a new line. If one of those three things are there, then it will get the data just like it has before with our get lines, just as you expect. Okay. But anyway, it's going to look for, now with this third parameter in there, it's going to look for a comma. So it's going to get my name. So it's going to look over here in the file. Going to get the name. It's going to see the comma, and it's going to say, oh, that's the end of my name, so I'll be done with name. And I have my name in there. So it'll have Abraham in there in the first part. And then it's going to go to get line in, comma, temp, comma, the comma in the single quotes. So it's going to, again, look for the next thing in my file. So it's going to look for the T, and it sees the comma, and notice this comma here and this comma here, they get thrown away, and the new line as well. If they just get thrown away, they get eaten up, if you will, by the get line. So it's going to read to the temp, to the comma, and it's going to stick it in temp, and then I'm going to use the CH, and I'm just going to grab the first character in temp. There should only be one. But if there's not, I'm just going to grab that first character in temp, so temp 0 with the square brackets. That says get that first character and stick it into CH, or the 0th character, if you will. The last get line here, it's going to do in, comma, temp. And notice there's no comma with the delimiter there. That's because it's going to read to the end of the line. And so it's going to get that last piece of data, and then this last part, and it's going to stick it in temp. The last line here in my curly braces, well, not the last line, the next to the last line in my curly braces is my in, is a standard value, STOI, open parentheses, temp, close parentheses. What this does is, it's STOI is a function that changes a string into an integer. So you have to get the data from the file, even though it looks like a number, it's really just a string when it comes over with my get line. So it's going to read it in as a string into temp. And then it's going to say, hey, wait, this, I know it's formatted data. I know that next piece of data is an integer, so I want to convert it from that string to an integer, and I use the STOI, the string to integer function, to get it into my integer variable. And then I have this long output line. So normally if I had a C in there, that would be C out, but I have my out, that's my output pointer, or my output file stream, so it's going to go to the stream, it's going to output the name, and then a tab, and then the CH, and then a tab, and then the I, and then a new line. So it's going to change my output file. It's going to just change all these guys to tabs. So that would be a tab in there now, and that will be a tab in there now in my new file, output file.txt. Remember that if I have an output file stream, it's going to overwrite. So if there was something in output file, output.txt, if there was something in that file already, it's gone now. It's replaced by this new stuff. Now, it's going to hit this curly brace, so it's going to go back up to the while. It's going to look for Oscar, the P, and it's going to do the same thing. Grab in Oscar, grab in the P, get that into CH, grab the 25, change it into an integer. Then it's going to go to output to the file, that line, but with tabs in there instead. And it's going to do that until it gets to the bottom of the file. Once it gets to the bottom of the file, it says, hey, there's nothing in my get line. It'll drop out of the loop. It'll close my output file. It'll close my input file. It'll return back to the operating system and say, hey, everything is hunky-dory. We're done with this file. We're done with both the files. So I closed them up. We are done with all the operations in this function, so we can be done. So that is a quick and fairly simple delimiting or formatted data type program. And you could do the same kind of thing. As long as you know the format of your data, you can get the data in very nicely. Now, if you were using arrays, or you were using structures, or using an array of structures, this would be a really nice way to get the data in from a file. So that's about it for formatted data and reading them in and outputting them a little bit too. So again, this just is code for taking formatted data that's comma delimited and making it into formatted data that is tab delimited, which, by the way, if you are one of my students, that is one of my programs, but the data looks slightly different than this one. So, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on C++ with Miyoshi.